On Thursday, the 29th of August, two people lost their lives in their late model 2017 Cessna 206 Stationair while attempting a go-around, a very late go-around, at Idaho's premier backcountry airstrip, Johnson Creek, Idaho. Blanco Lirio viewer Dustin Dickerson witnessed the accident as he was camped out at Johnson Creek at the time of the accident here in his Kit Fox, and gives an excellent overview, eyewitness account of exactly what he saw on the day after the accident. The NTSB has this data. Starting with the Aviation Safety Network on Thursday, the 29th of August, 2024, local time 15:35 local time. That's strike one. You always want to be down before noon when flying in the mountains in Idaho. More on that in a minute. November 712 Alpha Mike, 2017 model, 2 fatalities, 2 occupants on board. Happened while on approach. The previous departure airport was Jerome County Airport, Idaho, but it had been a long day. We'll look at the flight history from this particular flight. The Cessna 206 attempted a landing at Johnson Creek runway 17 with a 15 to 20 knot tailwind. The initial touchdown point was near midfield. 3 long bounces ensued, at which point the pilot attempted a go-around near the end of the runway. The pilot pitched up aggressively, which caused the left wing to drop and the plane to bank left. It disappeared into the trees and moments later crashed into the mountain, killing both occupants. The aircraft impacted the rocks in the rising terrain just a half-mile south of the airport, right next to the access road to the airport, and also right next to a set of power lines. These power lines here. The aircraft did not strike these power lines. It crashed just before the power lines. Johnson Creek is located just south of Yellow Pine in Idaho and a little bit to the east of McCall. Here at the about 5,000 foot elevation at the bottom of a very steep Johnson Creek Canyon where surrounding terrain pops up to over 9,000 feet. The airstrip itself is 3,400 feet long, attracting people from all over the United States every year. Even though Johnson Creek is grass and 3,400 feet long, it still requires a high degree of mountain flying currency and proficiency because of its location deep down in this canyon. Because you're hemmed in by the steep terrain, here's the airstrip right here on downwind, you're forced to fly your downwind much closer to the airstrip than you're normally used to. And here on downwind, you need to hug right up against these trees in this terrain before turning base. All of this can lend pilots to easily approaching Johnson Creek at much too high of an altitude or too steep of an approach, forcing them to go around.
1,000 feet to lose.
Here's where you can pitch it down over the trees for your base entry, which will force you into a dogleg entry to the airstrip. With the Husky, you can still fly a relatively short approach. Larger aircraft like the 206 need to work their way much further down canyon before turning their base leg. And in here, you can do a couple of S-turns to continue to lose any additional altitude to get yourself on a stabilized approach, before which time that you approach the half mile to final, which is marked by the bridge right up here. That's pretty much your decision point to go around. If you're not squared away by the time you cross these buildings right here, you need to be considering your go-around options.
Well, you want to get here before noon, boys.
That's right. This is a gusty afternoon. It's probably close to 12:30 by now, and the winds are picking up, and I got to carry extra airspeed for the wind shear and gusts on final.
Out right in here.
Now look at the rising terrain ahead of you for your possible go-around options. Your go-around options at this point are very limited due to the rising terrain ahead. You are basically committed.
Now, where would be a cool spot to park?
Plenty of camping and parking
Down here, huh?
all along the airstrip. Dustin had been camping out in his Kit Fox and has been into Johnson Creek several times. And he brought his buddy in his Super Cub, and this was his first time into Johnson Creek, so he was following Dustin's lead.
All right, here's what happened. Me and Gary were hanging out underneath his wing and watching airplanes. None were coming in. So here we are, Johnson Creek.
This is the great thing about Johnson Creek is it's glamping. You've got all these facilities here, including showers, hot coffee, some limited Wi-Fi capability, and excellent camping spots right along the Johnson Creek with great fishing.
Here's my tent over here. There's Gary's. I started walking over here, and all of a sudden I heard an airplane. Gary yelled to me that, hey, one's coming in. Let's watch him. So I turned around, started walking out like this. And then right here, I heard an airplane, and all I saw was a 206. He hit right here, bounced, flew clear down to about right here, bounced, and I kept walking this way. Gary was standing about right here, and Gary was counting. He's like, that's one, that's two. Third one was about right here. And on the third one, he was trying to keep the nose, the plane down. And he hit the nose first, was driving the nose into the ground, and then the mains hit and he bounced. He came up to about right here. I came running like this, past my airplane, about right here. We hear him power up, and he was in this vicinity, powered up, flaps are down. It was a 206 with a belly pod. Based on him hitting, he looked heavy. And when he came across right here, there was a guy flying. He had a hat on. He sat up forward and was sitting up in his seat, kind of doing the high in the seat, like realized wasn't good. There was a passenger, and I think I saw someone in the rear seat, but it could have been the headrest because it was a newer Cessna. I could tell it was a fairly new paint job or a brand new airplane. Third bounce right here. He initiates a go around. You see he's mushy. It's not climbing very well. He barely gets to about right here. The airplane is flying about like this, and I'm like, he's gonna nail the tree. I see him pull hard, pitch up like this, wings left, and he just slides across, missing that tree. And then he continues the slide and disappears behind this tree right here. We come running out like this, and it's about a 1/1000, 2/1000 right behind here. Huge fireball, higher than this tree. Big old cloud of black smoke comes up. We realize what had just happened. I turn around. Deb is right here. Jim is inside. She's yelling to Jim. He comes out, gets on the gator. Jim comes down, stops right here, says, I'm going down in the gator. You guys get fire extinguishers. So we ran from here to here. Kevin, who's in this Scout, he ran down to there and there. Then we all ran down to here, grabbed all the fire extinguishers out of here, hopped in the vehicle. Deb was over here on a phone trying to call 911. We needed to get the keys to the vehicle, so I just was breaking into their keys, but I had to run back and grab the main key from her. We opened it up, grabbed the Yukon, then we went flying down. Went down, got on the main road, pulled off to the side of the road. When we got off out of the vehicle, the fire was so intense at that point, it we couldn't even get out of the vehicle. We went to get out of the vehicle, then we heard what sounded like ammunition going off. So we stayed behind the vehicle, and then it sounded like possibly propane tanks exploding. So after about maybe 3 to 5 minutes, we felt like the initial fire was dying down somewhat. But on the hillside, I'll send pictures, but on the hillside, all through there, the fire was spreading up the hill. Fortunately, it wrecked into a rock pile. So a lot of the fuel was contained in the rocks, and the rocks were burning. And then we continued to try and make a perimeter to keep it from spreading up the hill and coming this direction. The wind started blowing that way and blowing the flames down there. And we fought up for the next 2.5 hours till the fire department and a helicopter came and got the fire out.
Looking at the Johnson Creek Airstrip here on Google Maps, the total runway distance, about 3,400 feet, landing runway 17, but the location where Dustin observed the crash from and all the bounces was down here by the buildings at the last 1/3 of the runway, the last 1,000 feet of the runway. Remember, at the very latest, you've got to go around if you are not down by the first third of the runway. Right off the end of the runway here is the Bryant House, and this tall tree located right here, that's the tall tree he was attempting to fade left from, and he ended up impacting the terrain right over here. Another contributing factor in this crash is going to be fatigue. Looking at his crew duty day, he started out of Phoenix Deer Valley at 7:30 in the morning local time, landed at St. George, then took a second landing at Jerome County, and then finally got into Yellow Pine at 3:32 in the afternoon, when he should have been in there much earlier in the day to avoid the winds, for a total of 2, 3, 4, nearly 5, over 5 hours of flying time on the day of the accident. There is this excellent video put out by the Idaho Transportation Department about flying into Johnson Creek, specifically designed for first-time pilots coming into Johnson Creek, but it doesn't really discuss the option of landing in the opposite direction if the winds are favoring runway 35. Had this pilot taken more time in his assessment of the runway and the wind condition at Johnson Creek and made the decision to instead land on runway 35, he probably would have been just fine. Or better yet, avoid getting into Johnson Creek that late in the afternoon and just stay at Jerome or somewhere outside of the mountains until the next morning, and then come in here bright and early in the morning before the winds pipe up at all. Because remember, often the most important safety device in your aircraft is the credit card in your wallet and some sound judgment. Johnson Creek is a very popular summertime fly-in destination, but requires a high degree of mountain flying proficiency and currency. And if it's your first time flying up here in the mountains, well, you don't want to come up to Johnson Creek for the first time solo. You need to get some proper mountain flying training and experience before coming up here and attempting this. Even though it's a nice long 3,400 foot long grass runway in pristine conditions in the mountains. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon. And this accident is very similar to an accident that occurred here just a month ago, where we lost our dear friend and neighbor Gabe, also in a Cessna 206, in an effort to do a very late go-around after a bounced landing very near the end of the runway at Neyland, California. The information from the NTSB preliminary report on that accident is available on my Patreon channel. Thank you so much for your support. See you here.